Hey there my fellow designers and creatives, hope you're all doing well. This is Chetan here from Design Pilot, and in this video I'm going to be showing you guys how to create this beautiful text and photo manipulation kind of an effect. Honestly, it's pretty simple to do, but you just need to know the right ways and the right techniques to do it. So definitely there's something really cool that you can learn from this tutorial. So without any further ado, let's get started. Alright, so here I'm in Photoshop and this is my final project. Now coming to the inspiration on Design Modo. Design Modo is basically a company that creates beautiful products related to website design and other similar products for designers. So they recently released Slides 4, which is one of their website builder, similar to Wix and Simply's and Squarespace. So this is the actual kind of a photo that they kind of came up with for the advertisement. And I knew that I had seen this photo on Unsplash. So I just went to Unsplash and typed the word grass. And as you can see, this is what it kind of came up. So I will link in the description all the details for the photographers, and I will link this as well, of course. So we're going to be learning to recreate this in Photoshop from scratch. So let's get started. So we're going to go ahead and click on File and click on New. And I'm going to go ahead and choose 1920 by 1080 and click on OK. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and just copy this section. So I'm going to press Ctrl A, copy that, come over here and just press Ctrl V to paste. So this is what we have. I'm just going to go ahead and delete this background. So the next thing you want to do is you want to get in some text and type in any word you want. You're going to be using the word design, and I'm using the font Made Waffle Soft. So it's basically, kind of important to use a very thick font, so keep that in mind. And I've added a bunch of I think 2 layer styles. So I'm just going to copy layer style, and I'm gonna come over here and then choose paste layer style. All right, so let me just break this down just to show you what this is. So we have a simple bevel and emboss with the depth of 100, the size of 2, 90, 30, 100, and 32. Simple, not complicated. And then we have a gradient overlay with these settings. So let me show you this color. So C8D5CC, and this is a little darker olive color, which is 9FB6A6. Go ahead and click on OK and click on OK. So this is what we're gonna have. I'm gonna go ahead and just kind of place it wherever I feel like placing. So yes, that is pretty okay. So I'm going to shrink this down a little bit because I feel it is too big. So I'm just going to go ahead and place it right over here, I guess, because we're going to have the plus sign come over here. So what you want to do now is you want to go ahead and reduce down the opacity of this, say something like 20. And what you want to do is you want to go and click on this button which says add a layer mask. But the first thing I want to do is I'm just going to make Ctrl J on the keyboard to make a copy, and I'm going to hide this. I'm going to go call this backup. And on this layer, I'm going to set the opacity to 100, right click and choose rasterize layer style. So I can no longer edit this text or the layer style. It is completely flat and rasterized. I'm going to set the opacity of this to 20%. Let's set it to, I don't know, 40%. Okay, 40 is pretty good. And then I'm going to go and click on this button which says add in a layer mask. And I make sure that you have selected this thumbnail and not this. You have selected this. Press P on your keyboard to get the pen tool, and we're going to start creating some masks. So I'm just going to click over here and click over here. All right, press P, and then I'm going to click over here. Oops, sorry. So select this, and then we can click on this. All right, and we can come over here. And then, we can just go ahead and close this up. Pretty cool. And you can select this as well. And let's just clean this up a little bit. All right, that is pretty good. And then once you have this, make sure that your foreground color is set to black. All right, and press Ctrl and Enter on your keyboard, which is going to make a selection. Make sure you are in the marquee tool, right click, and then choose fill, and make sure you have the foreground color set to black and click on OK. and that's going to add in a little bit of black over here. Press Ctrl D to deselect. And then as you can see, we have this part kind of, it's cut off. So if I set this back opacity to 100, you see it's kind of overlapping. All right, so let's kind of do the same thing. Let's see how I did it over here. All right, so this entire part is taken off. So I'm gonna press P on my keyboard. Let's reduce the opacity of this to 50 again. Let's come over here and all right, press Ctrl Enter, or you can also use press the Option or Alt and press the Delete key. So Option Delete or Alt Delete. Press Ctrl D to deselect, and it's looking pretty good in my opinion, and that's looking really good. All right, so the next thing you want to do is you want to go ahead and create a new layer, and we can right click and then choose Create Clipping Mask. So that's going to make a clipping mask. What a clipping mask does, it allows you to add any effects on the entire project, but it affects only the layer that is clipped to. So for example, if I unclip mask this and I press, just let's say I grab this color. So I grab this color and let's kind of make it a little dark green. Okay. And I'm going to press B on my keyboard to get the brush tool. I'm going to set the size of this to the hardness to 0. And if I click on this, as you can see, it's kind of coming over the entire project. But if I right click and choose Create Clipping Mask, it's going to confine it only to the layer that I've clipped it to. So let's Ctrl Z that. And what you want to do is, let's see if there is any blending mode I've added to this. So it is set to multiply. So that's pretty good. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and just slightly rub like so, or actually let's go ahead and darken this up a bit more. All right. And then we're going to just darken it to give it a little bit of shadow. All right, let's set this to multiply already. Multiply. Okay, there you go. It's pretty dark. And you can use the left and right square bracket keys to decrease or increase the size of the brush. So pretty small. Let's... okay. All right, let's make this big back again. And yeah, I think that is pretty good. And probably we can reduce down the opacity to probably like 80. That is completely up to you. So the next thing I'm gonna do is add in a little bit more depth. So I'm gonna press create a new layer. Press P on my keyboard to get the pen tool, and I'm gonna click here, and here, and I'm gonna press Ctrl Enter to make a selection. You can come here and set the foreground color to black, press Alt and Delete on the keyboard, and that's going to create this kind of a crazy triangle. So I'm going to go and just hold on Alt on my keyboard, and if I come between the layers, I get this icon. I can click and create clipping mask, or you can obviously choose right click and choose create clipping mask. Yeah, create clipping mask. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to filter, blur, and choose a Gaussian blur. And we're going to start increasing the blur amount to this. So 10, 15, I think 10 looks pretty good. So I'm going to press 10. And let's see what is the opacity. So I set the opacity to 80, I believe. So I'm going to reduce the opacity to 60 this time. Or actually, let's set it to 75. All right. And as you can see, we get a nice gradient. We can kind of move this up if we want somewhere. All right, so, but that is looking pretty good. Maybe 85 should do the trick. I think it's looking pretty good. Another thing I kind of forgot to do is this part. So I'm going to quickly grab the pen tool and just quickly, get this part done. Okay, and I'll create a new layer again. I'm going to get the pen tool, this time draw over here. Okay, press Ctrl Enter and make sure in the marquee tool, right click, choose fill. And good. Press Ctrl D, make this a clipping mask. Then go to filter, blur, and choose a Gaussian blur. Set the amount to, let's say 5 this time, or actually let's say 7. All right, and we can kind of slowly move this up like so, and probably even reduce the opacity to 90 if we want to. And as you can see, that is looking pretty good right now. I'm really liking it. So the next thing is to add in a bit of a texture. So I'm going to go to Google, and let's go to google.com/images. And we are going to pick a scratched grunge metal texture. All right, you're gonna go with something that is kind of fairly white. So I think this is looking pretty good. So I'm gonna right click, choose copy image, come back and choose paste image. And let's kind of scale this up. All right, and make this a clipping mask. As you can see, it's clipped. And now we can set the blending mode of this to soft light. And we can reduce down the opacity to 50%. And we can see a little bit of a grunginess, which adds in a lot of detail to this, looking pretty good. All right, so we're kind of almost done. What I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna go and select this backup layer, press Ctrl J to create a copy. And I'm gonna call this plus. And what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna go ahead and type in the word, the plus sign. And let's set the opacity of this to 100. I'm gonna place it somewhere over here. And I'm gonna come over here and set the gradient overlay to a different color series. So let's try red this time. So red and red. All right, that's looking pretty good. We can reverse this, so make sure that the lighter part is on top. Or let's just try a blue color shade. So we can go to the gradient overlay and set this to, I don't know, it's kind of a blue color. All right, that's fine. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create a new layer on top of this. Make sure my foreground color is white this time. Press B to get the brush tool. Make it pretty small and then just dab it once or maybe twice. And we can bring this below the text. And let's go and set the blending mode of this to overlay. And we can reduce this down to 60%, right? So you can see a nice little glow. And then we're gonna go and copy that same texture. So I'm gonna press Ctrl J and I'm gonna bring this on top of the logo. And we are gonna place it. Make sure you have to rasterize this. So right click and choose rasterize layer style. Only then can you see the texture. All right. And one last thing is you create a new layer, make this a clipping mask, press B and dab it on this and set the blending mode of this to overlay. If you want, you can reduce the opacity of this to 35%. That's completely up to you. But basically, let's take a look. I mean, it's going to take a little bit of tweaking to get it right, but you know, it kind of gets the job done. And last but not least, what we want to do is we want to make sure we have all the layers selected. Press Ctrl G and call this main. I'm going to go ahead and create a few adjustment layers. So I'm going to go ahead and create a curves. All right, and I'm just going to give it a little bit of a contrast. Okay, and also I'm gonna give it a little bit of a photo filter. So we've got a photo filter and we can choose the green version. Pretty cool. Another thing I forgot to mention is that we also have a drop shadow on the design layer. So I can right click and choose copy layer style. I'm gonna show you the settings. So I'm gonna come over here and then probably choose paste layer style. Okay. And if I come over here, I can show you the settings. So let's bring this up. So it is 60% opacity. I'm going to set this to 40 for now. 120, 21 on the spread, and 250 for the size. I'm going to copy the same thing and I'm going to come here to this layer and then choose paste layer style. Okay. Yep. Now that is looking much better. So this is without the color correction. This is with the color correction. So after everything is done, if you want, you can select these two and press Ctrl G and call this backup. You can make a copy by pressing Ctrl J, press Ctrl E to merge everything into one single layer, press Ctrl A to make a selection of the entire thing, Ctrl C and Ctrl V, and you can delete the one at the bottom. So we have only this. Then you can go to filter, blur, or actually blur gallery and choose tilt shift blur. And then we can go ahead and play around with the settings. All right, so we can increase this and we can increase this as well. Okay, and then just go ahead and click on OK. And boom, we have a nice blur. Now to finish it off, we're gonna add in a vignette. So I'm gonna create a new layer. I'm gonna go ahead and select the elliptical marquee tool and just create an ellipse like so. And I'm gonna press Control Shift I, or you can go to select and choose inverse, and that's going to select the outside part. Make sure the foreground color is set to black. Alt delete on the keyboard, press Ctrl D to deselect. Now the opacity I set for this was 10%, so let's go ahead and set it to 10%, or actually I set it to 25%, and I'm going to filter, blur, and choose a Gaussian blur. and probably set this to, I don't know, 5, I guess, or let's actually set it to 20. And if we set the opacity of this to like 65, 20, yeah, I think 20 looks good. Gives it that nice cinematic feel. So that's pretty much it on how to create this cool, amazing text photo manipulation in Photoshop. If you guys really enjoyed this tutorial, let me know if you guys want more like this. Make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel for more amazing content, and I'll definitely see you guys in the next video. So take care and bye-bye.